Today we're taking a look at the Vaporfly 4% after 100 miles. .49 miles, 7 minutes, 58 seconds per mile today, under some extremely windy conditions in the Nike Vaporfly 4%. This is version 1 for the Vaporfly, and this is the vast gray color. Today's run takes me over the 100 mile mark. Now, it seems like it's taken me forever to get to that point in the shoe, and it is longer than usual for me to get to 100 miles for this shoe, but I've only had this shoe since about last November. I got it right ahead of the Indianapolis monumental marathon that I ran with my buddy last, I think it was November. So it hasn't been all that long, but I wanted to give you guys an update, not so much as to the shoe. I've been running in a variety of Vaporfly, but mainly so you guys could see the way that the ZoomX foam is wearing down. I know that's a big concern for me because you're running directly on the ZoomX foam, and it seems to be a little bit more fragile than some of the other ground contact foams that are out there. And so I wanted to show you guys my right heel. That's the area that I get the most wear on any shoe, and this shoe is no exception. And I tried to capture it as well as I could in some of the footage that you're going to see today. Now, the main things that I'll notice is that the ZoomX foam is worn down quite a bit. It's even wearing down some of the grooves that have been kind of cut into it for traction in regards to the ZoomX foam. But it makes me think about just kind of the way that the ZoomX foam is made. Earlier on, when I just first started to see some of the wear and tear on the ZoomX foam, it seemed like there were two materials, and I've always felt there's like kind of two materials on here. And I think, and maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an expert on how ZoomX shoes are made, but it seems like the ZoomX foam is not naturally, say, a white color, and it seems like they had to color it. And in fact, they can color it because there's the red stripe here and the blue section over here that's crinkling and the color is coming off a little bit. So I don't know if it's a situation where they have to paint on the color or if there's like a film layer. And that's what it's always kind of felt like to me, that there's like a shrink wrapped layer on top of the ZoomX foam. And I always thought, you know what, the wear and tear is not the ZoomX being ground down by friction, it's that paint layer. And maybe that is it or maybe that isn't it. But over 100 miles, what I have noticed is that the amount of wear on the ZoomX foam is going deeper and deeper. So it's not just like whatever superficial color or paint layer or film layer or whatever like that. We are getting into the ZoomX foam. And at this point, it's still not a concern to me. For the most part, it seems to be superficial and aesthetic and not functional. But I am getting down on that ZoomX to a point where I am a little bit concerned over the next 100 miles that these rubber patches that are kind of inlaid into the ZoomX foam, so you have a very flat surface here, the rubber pieces look like if the ZoomX foam gets ground down further, it might erode like underneath and those rubber pieces might pop right off. I haven't seen that personally yet. Some of you guys have been sending me pictures of your Vaporfly and some of the crazy stuff that's been happening to yours. So I've seen that happen with other people's Vaporfly. Now, the other thing that I'll notice though is that in terms of the rubber itself, aside from my concern that it might come off, is that it is absolutely rock solid. I have not seen rubber hold up this well on any shoe before. It's kind of uncanny. I've had to look really closely to see any signs of real wear on any of this rubber up here, and I've noticed that around some of the edges there is some slight wear happening, but none in the major spots that I normally see a ton of wear in my shoe. So that's been a surprise. The other only real major area of rubber wear is in that spot where I am hitting the ground a little bit, kind of dragging my feet. That here the rubber is worn a little bit. But even then, it's surprising how little wear that the rubber is showing. So that's been absolutely surprising. The other thing that I've noticed when it comes to looking at this ZoomX foam after 100 miles is that it's discolored. And so this ZoomX foam used to be kind of a pristine white all around, and it's very much yellow, if not a little bit brown at this point. And I'm not sure if that's just the natural way that ZoomX wears, or if it's because of the surfaces that I ran on. Not only did I run in this shoe on road and pavement like I normally do, but I also took this into some light trails when I was out in San Diego, and occasionally when I'm running along the lakefront here, there are certain parts where you can run on some dirt, where I've been running on that as well. And so I don't know if that's the reason for the discoloration, is the color of the surface materials that I was running on. But it does seem to be quite noticeably discolored over time, and it's been about 6 or 7 months, about 6 months that I've had this shoe. So that's something else that kind of really stuck out to me. One thing that I remember noticing from the way that the Zoom Fly wore down, especially the Lunarlon version, the React version wasn't so much a problem, but the Lunarlon version was that the design of this outsole pattern, it's very geometrical, very sharp, straight lines. But the way that the Lunarlon and the Zoom Fly SP wore down, it got very like wrinkly, like kind of like looking at a grape versus a raisin. And I'm starting to see a lot more of that here. I don't recall seeing that earlier on in terms of as I was checking for the wear on this ZoomX foam, but it's starting to do that kind of wrinkling thing where it looks like, you know, you've been in the bath for a little bit too long. It's not terrible, just a little bit. Again, aesthetics, but not performance. But now when we get to performance, let's talk about the upper and how that's holding up. It's holding up really, really well. It's still one of the best uppers that I think Nike has put out. I really think it's very breathable, fits good on the foot. It feels like it's stretchy enough so that my toes aren't too crowded in there, even though this is a very narrow shoe. The only one area of real wear that I'm seeing, other than just some slight discoloration from staining and things like that, which is completely fine, is there's a little bit of puckering happening along this material right around the heel cup. And again, it's something that's completely aesthetic, not functional at all, but just something that I've noticed. But that's pretty much about it. The shoe as a whole still performs extremely well, with a little bit of a caveat. So this is an expensive shoe to start out with. It's a racing shoe, not intended to be a daily trainer. So it's a little bit difficult to kind of figure out what kind of mileage one is supposed to be getting from a racing shoe, especially one that's kind of in a newer category with ZoomX foam, which is a new material, and the carbon fiber plate. How many miles are you supposed to get out of it? That's a really great question, and I still don't really know the answer to it. But I can tell you what I think about this shoe at 100 miles. At 100 miles, it doesn't seem as squishy as I remember it when I initially put it on. Now that just could be my memory of having never experienced a Vaporfly to now suddenly experiencing a Vaporfly. Maybe that's what the nostalgia is, and that's the cushion that I remember. But so I feel like at slower paces, the specialness of the shoe isn't as noticeable, if that makes any sense. But what I have noticed that once I get to kind of a moderate effort or pushing it a little bit further than that, I definitely feel the entire package. I feel the softness of the ZoomX foam with the push off and the springiness of that carbon fiber plate. It's still all in there. It still all feels really great. Would I want to run a marathon in this shoe like this weekend? I think I could probably still do it and be very happy with it. And if this were the only Vaporfly in my closet at 100 and so miles, this would be an easy choice. Absolutely, I'd run a road marathon in this without hesitation. But I do have other Vaporfly available to me. And so for me, I probably wouldn't. I'm not saying that a person probably shouldn't, and I'm not saying a Vaporfly is useless after 100 miles. I have multiple Vaporfly, so I don't need to run in a 100 mile, or I don't need to race in a 100 mile Vaporfly. I probably run in one that has fewer miles on it. But this certainly is now going to become my go-to long run, hard effort shoe. Like this weekend, I have a 20 miler that I have planned. I'm gonna have some half marathon pace miles intervals along with some marathon pace intervals all kind of wrapped up in a 20-mile run. It's gonna be a tough workout. This is the shoe that I'm probably gonna wear because those kinds of workouts, when I really want to push myself, I want to have a shoe that I feel like can help me and not slow me down in terms of those kinds of efforts. And this shoe is going to be absolutely perfect for that. So I'm still definitely going to be running on this shoe, even though it has 100 miles, a whole bunch more. I probably won't race in it anymore at this point, but this is a shoe that's definitely still going to be very frequently seen in my rotation. So those are all my thoughts on the Vaporfly 4% version 1 after 100 miles. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or what your experiences have been. If you've gotten, I know a lot of you have gotten way more miles than 100 in your Vaporfly. I'd love to hear about your thoughts on any of the wear and tear that I've been talking about, aesthetic or functional, just to see what you guys are experiencing. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yo, what's going on?